What's up, y'all? This is John and Kaleb back for another episode of the Nothing Finer podcast. We're joined by Ryan Schumpert from the Rocky Top Insider to talk about the Tennessee Volunteers ahead of both teams' SEC opener. But y'all can catch us live on Millions on Thursdays, except for this week, YouTube on Sundays, and at the Rock House on Tybee Island for away games. If you can't get any of those places, we're on audio through the Fans First Sports Network. And then I am on Rock 106.1 at 6:15 on Fridays. But before we get into it, Ryan, how are you?
I'm doing well. How you guys doing?
Oh, man, talking ball, watching, well, I was going to say watching a good NFL game to my right and a college game to the left, but somebody's getting carted off the field in Thursday night football, so don't like that.
No, that's not great. Not what you're looking for.
Caleb? Hello? Caleb? You there? Are you muted?
I apologize. Yeah, I didn't realize
Oh,
I had
you
muted
took
myself.
Mike's job for the
Yep.
episode.
Somebody had to do it.
All right, so let's go ahead and jump into Tennessee here. And up front, as a Georgia podcast, we despise most things Tennessee, but we have praised them quite a bit this offseason for what they did as a team with the Nico situation. Just the whole NIL from the lawsuit, from the NCAA stuff, all the way to the point of where they were like, "Hey, guy, you kind of suck. You're not getting a raise for not being good. Go somewhere else." Um, because he was a quarterback that couldn't develop and one of the most quarterback-friendly offenses in the country. And now we're seeing what he can do in not a Josh Heupel offense. And boy, his dad hates him. Is kind of where I'm at with that.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, you're not wrong about that. I mean, the thing that I just continue to go back to, like, if you're gonna leave, like, I think it's an understandable argument. Waiting to do it in the spring was just such a horrible decision. Limited his options so much.
yeah, and you know Tennessee, not even arguably, they won the trade
Yeah.
because they didn't lose to a Group of Five team in week 2.
I'll tell you what, UCLA better get New Mexico this week. Like, if they don't get New Mexico this week, they got New Mexico this week and Northwestern the next two. They got to get one of those. If they don't get one of those, I'm not sure they're going to win a game.
If if they lose this week, do they bench a $2 million quarterback?
His brother might be the backup. Like, I don't know
Yeah.
who they turn to. Like, who else they even have on their roster that they can play? Obviously, they went out and got Joey Aguilar, and he left. So uh, that's going to be the fun thing to watch. I'm sure Nico's brother. I don't know what Nico will do after this year. I imagine he will not be back at UCLA. Surely he will transfer again and not try to go pro.
Who's
But
Florida
all
State's
that
next
with
quarterback?
But Nico's brother being tied into it now of getting to follow the drama with him afterwards is also going to be very entertaining.
All right, so we're going to stick with the quarterback position, but go to the current quarterback, Joey Aguilar, who's been around for a while, played 2 seasons at App State before hitting the double jump and going from UCLA to Knoxville in one offseason. So with his history of throwing interceptions, what has the offense done differently to turn that around through 2 games?
Well, I think it's kind of an interesting dynamic where one, you look at Tennessee's offense traditionally under Josh Heupel, and it limits throws into danger with the wide splits. Like, it just makes those windows bigger. They don't throw the ball over the middle as much as most offenses do. So you see guys even like Nico and Joe Milton who weren't super accurate and made some bad decisions at times, only throw 5 interceptions in a season. So there's that element of it. I think limited the concern for Joey Aguilar. But at the same time, Tennessee has made some changes to their offense, and they're not, through 2 games at least, have not leaned on wide splits as much as they have in the past. So I think through 2 games, which I'll just go ahead and get ahead of. I'm sure I'll say this a billion times. We only know so much about the Tennessee team. They've played a bad Syracuse team in ETSU, but he's had plenty of time to throw. And against Syracuse, I was really impressed with just the grasp he had on the offense and how quickly he was working through things and getting the ball out. And he just really didn't put a ton of throws in danger. Last week, you started to see some of those, I think, tendencies from App State come back, where you had a couple that were, oh no, oh no, oh yes. But against Georgia's defense, you think they might just be oh no all the way. So I think the offense as a whole does a good job of minimizing some of those concerns. He has looked comfortable in the offense and generally had pretty good command, but the challenge and the pressure and all this stuff, and he's played from ahead, in those 2 games too. So all the things that dictate not throwing interceptions have gone his way through 2 weeks. Now they could be flipped this week. I'm curious to see how he'll respond.
So oh, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. So obviously expectations have skyrocketed after seeing his performance the last couple of weeks. What expectations do you think are fair for him this season?
Yeah, I think I wrote an article on the site earlier this week, kind of just saying to pump the brakes on the hype train a little bit. And really, I went back last year because Tennessee's first 2 games last year was flip-flop, but very similar. SoCon team, UTC in the opener, and then NC State, so a below-average bad ACC team. And the offensive numbers from those 2 games and the quarterback numbers, very similar.
Yeah,
Joey
we have talked about that, yes.
Yeah, I will say he was better against Syracuse than Nico was against NC State, which is a game you'd look at more. But still, it's there's a lot to learn about Joey Aguilar in this Tennessee offense still. So I think my expectations for him are to be better than they were last year, to not have 3 straight first halves where you get shut out, to when you're playing the Arkansas, the Mississippi States, the Kentuckys of the world, to be able to score 30 points and win those games maybe a little bit more comfortably than they did last year. When it comes to facing the Georgias, the Alabamas of the world, and who knows what Florida will look like by the time Tennessee rolls into Gainesville in late November, that's where I'm not so sure that there's going to be an interim coach. I feel pretty confident about that. The question I have is whether the team is going to be playing hard for him or not. But when it comes to those tougher games, you can throw Oklahoma in there too. When it comes to those tougher games on the schedule, I need to see more before I think all right, Tennessee's offense is going to be even close to what it was in 2022. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. I think that's unfair to put it on Aguilar and Tennessee's offense from what we've seen through 2 weeks that are going to be a top 10 offense in the country again. But I think it is fair to say they can be a little bit more consistent. They can avoid some of those really bad lulls that just plagued them for a lot of last season.
So what do you expect out of him for this game?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I had this conversation with somebody who has a podcast and radio show in Knoxville earlier this week where, all the off-script stuff that you're worried about, kind of the risk-taking that, most of the season you really do not want to see him do that because most of the teams on Tennessee's schedule, Tennessee's going to be more talented than, and they can kind of lean on the run game. But, I mean, as you guys know, Georgia has completely had Tennessee's number, not just in these matchups, but specifically Georgia's defense versus Tennessee's offense. So I'm curious to see how many chances he takes, both in structure, throwing into some tighter windows over the middle, taking shots down the field, and then also when things break down and he's creating his taking some risk. I'm just really curious to see when, the way you asked the question of what I expect. I honestly don't really know because we just haven't seen him in this structure at Tennessee yet. And again, Heupel has changed some things with the offense. How much of that will be the same in this game and how much will they kind of revert back to what they've done when, they face some adversity as an offense. So I think there's a number of things that are going to be interesting in this game is usually the case for an SEC opener to begin with, and all the more so when it's a team as good as Georgia. But what Joey and the offense looks like, I think is at the very top of the list.
Yeah. So sticking with the offense, obviously Tennessee lost Dylan Sampson last season, maybe one of the least talked about losses in the FCC in the offseason coming up. So the bulk of the rushing yards have actually been 2 guys, Star Thomas and is it DeSeason?
No, that's Deshaun.
Deshaun.
My phone auto corrected to D season.
Okay. Well, I hate to reveal that I don't know the second running back's name at Tennessee off the top of my head too by reading that wrong. But do you expect the Tennessee run game to this? I guess this is a full season question. This season to stay close to the 2024 level. Do you expect some drop off?
Yeah, maybe a little bit of drop off, but I expect them to run the ball really well again. I mean, they've done it every single year under Josh Heupel. Really, it's been three-headed monsters so far this season. Peyton Lewis has also gotten a lot of carries or at least drives. His carries are below both those guys, but the first half of games they have completely rotated one drive each. So, look, yeah, Tennessee's run the ball really well. I don't think any of those guys, at least at this point in their career, are as good as Dylan Sampson. And I do wonder, like, if this is a game where you could feel the loss of Dylan Sampson a little bit more.
Oh, we're
But
good.
okay, yeah, that was hard. I wonder if this game you could feel the loss of him a little bit more because it's an elite defense and he ran the ball really well against Georgia last year and made some big plays in that game. So as a whole season thing, I don't think it's going to be as big as a loss. And I also think Tennessee's offensive line is better than it was a season ago, which obviously is just as important to the run game as the running backs themselves.
So how well do you think the running game will do in this game specifically?
Yeah, I think that's to me one of the biggest questions. Like increasingly over the last 4 years, Tennessee has run the ball a little bit better and a little bit better and a little bit better in this game. 23, you could argue it's a little deceptive that they ran the ball better because they ran for 75 yards on the first play and didn't run for a whole lot else after that. Look, that's what I would target if I'm Tennessee. I think they ran for like 148 last year. I'm targeting 150. I think 150 takes some of the pressure off of the passing game, but to me, this when I talk about Tennessee's offense versus Georgia's defense, it's most of my questions and what I need to see to feel like Tennessee is going to win this game is having success through the air.
And so, talking about success in the air, while they've had a lot of turnover in the wide receiver room, they do already have three guys close to or over 150 passing yards or receiving yards. So, are you happier with what you've seen from the pass catchers this year than in 2024?
Yeah, I would say there's reason to be optimistic. Like the one thing last year, Dante Thornton was the one guy that could kind of strike fear into a defense, I guess. He was the one guy that had a lot of big play potential, and he struggled to stay healthy. Even in the games that he played, his snaps were limited because of that. And he's starting for the Raiders right now as a rookie. So Tennessee really, they gambled in the offseason and that they did not go after really any big names at receiver in transfer portal. And they said they are going to ride back with some of the younger guys who were Braylon Staley and Mike Matthews, who were true freshmen last year. Matthews played a little bit, but not a ton. And Staley really didn't play at all until the Ohio State game because their backup slot receiver had opted or had already transferred. Don't get me started on how crazy that decision making is. So he got a little bit of run in the Ohio State game. So those are the guys that are more athletic, I think, than what they've had or what they had at receiver a season ago, especially Staley in the slot, has a little bit more juice. So, it's those guys have shown flashes early, but time will tell, and certainly an incredibly difficult task they'll have on Saturday. And Chris Brazel's the one guy that is back. He played a lot last year. He was a transfer from Tulane going into last season, and he's back. And he really had a pretty disappointing last year. People expected a lot more from him, but through 2 games he's had a good year, and we'll see if he can keep it going.
So, what are your expectations for those guys this weekend?
Look, Tennessee has not passed for 200 yards in this game since 2021. I think Cedric Tillman and Jalen Hyatt both got to about 65 yards in 2022. Since then, they haven't had a receiver get over 50 yards. Tennessee didn't. I think they had one pass play of over 15 yards in the game last year. Like that's when like I said a minute ago, my questions are about receiver or about Tennessee's passing game in this game. They haven't had anything. Kirby has had all the answers for Tennessee's passing attack, even in 22 when that passing attack was really, really good. So that's to me the big question. If Tennessee is going to win this game, they have to, more than anything, I think, is create, if not explosive plays, some chunk plays in the passing game. They need some of those young, talented guys to step up and have catches and push north of 50 yards would be a start, and Tennessee needs to be able to throw for around 250 yards in this game if they're not going to depend on getting a punt return for a touchdown or a defense, a big defensive turnover to give them a short field. So that's the big question. I lean towards Georgia winning this game and covering. I personally don't completely get the spread, so I would guess. I would say my expectations aren't super high for Tennessee's receiving room, but more than anything, I think that's where Tennessee could flip the game and kind of, if I'm sitting there Saturday night and Tennessee has won after all week, I don't think I haven't given Tennessee, or just said I don't think they're going to win. That's what I think I would point to. Of Tennessee's receivers stepped up and played really well in this game, and I did not expect that to happen.
So last questions about the offense. In 2024, the line struggled to protect the quarterback at times, coming in at 89th in sacks allowed. Based on what I could find, and if you've ever tried to do offensive line research, there's no information anywhere.
Yeah, it's tough.
But they're replacing 4 guys on that line, and then potentially 1 guy is even out for this game that started the season. So do you expect an improvement for quarterback protection for the season overall, and then specifically this weekend with potentially having another guy out?
Yeah, so you are right. It's 4 new starters. David Sanders is the starting right tackle. He hasn't played at all this season, actually. He is the starter, but he suffered an injury Wednesday of the Syracuse week and has not played. He's questionable on the availability report here as of Thursday night. We'll see. I lean towards thinking he's not going to play from what I have heard. And they've shuffled things around and played really well. Again, competition, make that note for the 5th time. But I think they're going to be better. Like as the whole season goes, I think Lance Hurd is in his 2nd year in the program after it was a former 5-star recruit, transferred from LSU, struggled a lot early last season, got better. I think he's a guy that it would not be a surprise to me if we look up and he's an all SEC guy by the end of the year. They went out and got Sam Pendleton and Wendell Moy out of the transfer portal, who were starting at center and guard. Both those guys are really good players, and then they've had some young guys step up at those other spots. I mean, Jesse Perry's a redshirt freshman. He kind of came out of nowhere and won the right guard job, and he's slid the right tackle with David Sanders sidelined so far this season, and he's played really, really well. So, again, a much, much different level test. I especially Perry would be the big one that I wonder about at right tackle. He's not a super big frame. He is a really good athlete. Easier to hold up with that frame against Syracuse and ETSU than it's going to be on Saturday, but I definitely think Tennessee's offensive line is better than it was last year, and I think it will be better in this game, if I had to guess, than it was in that matchup in Athens a year ago.
So moving over to the defensive side of the ball, the front, specifically the defensive line, was a strength of the team last year at a surprise of a lot of people being a Josh Heupel coach team. But how much do you expect that to maintain this season, given that neither of the first 2 teams was a significant challenge up front and the guys that were lost in the offseason?
Yeah, they were so good last year in large part because they had so much depth and they could play so many different guys. Now, James Pierce was an elite player and a first-round pick. Omar Norman Lott was an elite pass rusher from the inside and went in the 2nd round. So those guys were really big losses. That's been the strength of the defense every year since Josh Heupel and Rodney Garner got to Tennessee. So I don't think you're going to see a huge step back. I was already a little worried about the defensive tackle spot. I didn't love the depth that they had there. And then in fall camp, David Hobbs, who's one of the guys that played last year, hurts his foot. He's not going to play in this game, probably later this month, maybe early October when he'll return. And then Jackson Moy, 3 plays into the year, suffered an injury, and he's, again, at the time of recording, Thursday night availability report, he was questionable. It sounds like things are trending in the right direction towards him playing in this one. So that'll be a big boost for Tennessee to get him back. Tennessee's run defense was especially elite last year, and I do wonder about that. Syracuse ran the ball a little bit better than I expected to in that game, and certainly with what Gunnar Stockton can do with his legs, there's been, and I felt like this offseason, you guys correct me if I'm wrong, there was more buzz about Georgia's rushing game making some big improvements from last year. I do wonder about that, but I don't think it's just going to fall off the ledge and Tennessee's just going to get gashed in the ground. But I do think they're probably a little bit more susceptible to giving up yards on the ground than they were a season ago.
So the linebacker group returns 2 of their top tacklers from 2024. What is your confidence level in the new guys this year? And then how well do you think they do this weekend?
Yeah, I feel pretty good about him, and I feel pretty good about him in this game, especially when it comes to in playing run defense. There's three that I really like. T-Lander and Arian Carter are the two guys that played a ton last year. Carter was a starter to begin the year. T-Lander played a lot early. He was the third guy. Then Keenan Peely suffered a season-ending injury, and I think it was the Florida game in early October, and T-Lander starts the rest of the year. And then Edwin Spillman's the third guy. He was a true freshman last year, was banged up through a lot of the year, so didn't play a ton, but he is a super talented guy, was a big high four-star recruit out of Nashville. So those three I think are really good, and I think will play well in this game. They do struggle in pass coverage, and I mean, look, that's one of the biggest storylines to me in the game last year is the way Georgia and Mike Bobo was able to really exploit the middle of Tennessee's defense, throwing the ball to the tight ends.
Wait, somebody saying something positive about Mike Bobo?
I got some good. I have some of my best friends from high school are they went to Georgia, and I don't. You're right. I don't hear a lot of compliments from Mike Bobo from those guys.
We are Bobo defenders at
I
least
love
until
it.
the end of September. Because I was in New Orleans, and that was tough to watch. So
Yeah,
as a podcast, we have decided that he has till the end of September to figure out how to game plan for a guy that can actually move around
yeah,
inside the pocket and run the ball before we're just on the fire Bobo train.
yeah. I think that's fair. He's got a full off season. It's just it's a different deal with figuring out playing to Gunnar Stockton's strengths
And
this year.
his dad was Gunner's private quarterback coach from the time he was in elementary school until he got to Georgia. Like, the Bobo family and Gunner Stockton go back to the 90s.
Yeah. No, I didn't even know that. That's great. But back to the linebackers. Like that's what I wonder about in this game is they have not been great in pass coverage to this point in their career. I don't expect that to change this season. So that would be the concern. But when it comes to defending the run, playing sideline to sideline, even rushing the passer, Spillman I think is a really talented pass rusher as an inside linebacker. I feel good about those guys, and I think those guys will perform well on Saturday.
So the secondary top 30 in passing yards allowed last season. They are missing two very key pieces this week, and this is the last question about really the team. Kind of buried the lead here. So who plays in those guys' spot, and then what is your confidence level in the backups?
Yeah. So look, the thing about Jermon McCoy, if you're gonna have a preseason All-American tear their ACL in the offseason, it's best that it happens in January, which it did. So Tennessee was able to go out in the portal in the spring period and get Colton Hood out of Colorado, who was kind of an off and on starter across from Travis Hunter last season, and he's been really good. I think he's gonna have a really good season. I don't think, I think I would say I think he's better than Ricky Gibson, who would be Tennessee's other corner. Pretty similar. And Gibson's the other guy that's hurt, and it sounds like it's going to miss the vast majority of this year. The question goes to the other side, where you have Ty Redmond, who's a true freshman, went to Milton in Georgia. He was the second lowest rated recruit in Tennessee's signing class last year, according to 24/7 Sports. And they signed about 5 corners, but he has been the one that's emerged as the top guy from that group. And he again has played well through 2 weeks. And Syracuse threw the ball a lot in that game, and he handled himself well. So I think there's a ton of excitement and confidence about him in the long term. I do wonder about the short term in this specific game. What they do kind of have the option to do. I don't know how much you guys have followed the Boo Carter saga this offseason, but
I did what I could, but
yeah,
between that story almost simultaneous with the Nico, and it was a lot of drama, which is
it
the
was.
reason that I don't do Twitter. I don't
Yeah.
like drama, so I was just like, I'll talk to somebody from Tennessee when the game comes and figure it out.
Yeah, it was a very dramatic offseason at Tennessee. But all that to say, Boo Carter is on the team. He's playing, but they've kind of worked him back in slowly. And Jalen McMurray has started at star, which is what Tennessee calls its nickelback position. And Boo Carter played a little bit more last week, and Jalen McMurray was Tennessee's third corner last season out wide and played a good bit and played well. I mean, he's not a star or anything like that. I am curious how much in a game like this they might slide him out back outside and play him more instead of Ty Redmond because of his experience, and then give Boo Carter more snaps inside. So that's kind of a wrinkle that we could see them use. They didn't do it last week, even though Gibson got hurt in Syracuse game. But that would be the one thing I'm curious in. And, it's definitely, like I said, it would be for anyone. You lose your top two corners on a good pass defense from a year ago. It's not a good thing, but I do think Tennessee's pretty well equipped, all things considered, to not just have their corners fall off the ledge, despite those injuries.
All right, so get into a couple of big picture questions. Do you think that Georgia is a mental block for Heupel, or is there another reason that the games haven't been particularly close, and then specifically they haven't been close in Knoxville?
Yeah, I don't really think I would say mental block. Um, to the Knoxville point, I think that's, I don't know, as simple as like this is his fifth year. His two worst teams were the 2 years that the game was in
Which is a very
Knoxville.
fair point.
I wonder about that. I think I would point to that more than anything. I think it's more a systematic block, I think is what I would say. Like, I just think Kirby has Georgia's defense is, well, I mean, one, it just starts with an incredible amount of talent and athleticism and don't have to stack the box and can stop the run. And Kirby would tell you, as Josh Heupel would, the running game is what is the engine that gets Tennessee's offense going and sets up the chunk plays down the field. And Georgia's been able to do that with lighter boxes. And then I think, too, with how well Kirby has that group coach, like there's never been anything easy for Tennessee against Georgia, against Alabama, against Florida, against the best teams they've played in the SEC. Maybe not every year, maybe not every half, but there have been some easy things for Tennessee's offense, and that's just never been the case in this game. So I think it's, I don't know if it's necessarily as much like a schematic thing, but Georgia having the athletes and being really well coached, and there probably is some schematic stuff that goes into it too, I think is a big reason I would point to why they've had Tennessee's number.
All right, so what are you most concerned about this weekend?
I think, and I touched on this one. To me, the biggest thing is just the passing game. It's what we just said. They have not been able to do much. Everything has been very difficult. Like even last year, Tennessee, what jumps out to a 10-0 lead in that game. That first drive, they converted 3 or 4 third/fourth downs. It was very difficult for them to drive down the field on script. So I think that's the biggest hurdle that I need to see Tennessee get over to feel like they're going to beat Georgia is have more success passing the football. Um, Defensively, I would say it would be the run defense that I worry most about. I mean, it just seems like with some of the limitations in Georgia's passing game for the first 2 weeks, which again, I don't know how much I really glean into that, just given the competition. I feel good about Tennessee's corners. Like I don't think, not that it's going to be shut down, but I think they'll be able to hold their own. If I'm Tennessee in this game and Georgia can run the ball for 4 yards, 5 yards at a time, stay in favorable down and distance, control the ball, control the clock. That's what I would worry about for Tennessee's defense.
And then what are you most confident in?
Yeah, it's a good question. Would say I'm most confident in Tennessee's offensive line being better than it's been in this game in the past. I think they, again, not that they're going to gash Georgia on the ground, but I think they'll be able, like they were last year, to run the ball pretty well. And I don't think it's going to be quite as bad as with the quarterbacks running for their life like it has been in a number of the games the last few years. So I would say it's that. And then, um, it's cheesy or whatever, but I would say the Neyland Stadium effect. They've played extremely well at home under Josh Heupel. It's a really tough place to play. Gunnar Stockton making his first road start. I would say that would be the thing. And I'll also throw in there, which was almost a huge play in the game last year when Brett Thorson made that tackle on Boo Carter. Boo Carter he's an elite punt returner. So and I think Tennessee just as a whole is good on special teams. I think that if Tennessee can keep this game close, that might be an area they can swing things.
All right, and the last thing I'm going to ask you is for some game picks. And so I give the line, I give the over under, but I'm just asking for a straight up pick. And I also know that even though I've updated these lines at 5 o'clock this afternoon, they are wrong.
Yeah.
This week, the lines have moved. I had talked about it in the episode we recorded a little while ago. I updated these lines twice yesterday and twice today, and they've moved every time I've gotten on. So I know they're wrong. I can't keep up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's been a wonky week for some of these lines.
All right, so we got Florida at LSU. LSU favored by 7.5, over under 47.5.
Yeah, I like LSU to win and LSU to cover.
And we got USF at Miami. Miami 17.5 point favorite, over under 57.
I like the under, but I like Miami to win and Miami to cover. USF, and look, I'm a big Alex Golis guy. He did a great job at Tennessee. Um, Great win for them last week. Great wins for them to start the year. I don't want to say it's a fluke because that's not true, but their offense has not looked great in those games, and not as good as you would think their offense. I think, only had like 350 yards in that Boise State game. They did a great job of just hanging around and kind of capitalizing on Florida's ineptitude last week, which I'll be the last one to rip. I'll be the last one to rip on to diminish someone winning in the swamp. Given I think 4 years old the last time Tennessee did. So, but I think Miami will be able to open things up a little bit more in this game, and it's just hard to keep that level of intensity for 3 straight weeks.
And we got Vandy at South Carolina. South Carolina 5.5 point favorite, over under 48.5.
Sneaky Vanderbilt to not only cover, Vanderbilt to win. A take I've been brewing on this week. Get your thoughts. I'm sure you pay close attention to South Carolina too. I don't know which one of these things it is, but Shane Beamer is either the worst fall camp coach in the country or the best in-season coach in the country, because they are consistently terrible in September and not quite as consistent, but pretty consistently play good football in November and have turned things around.
So I actually lean more towards he's the worst offensive line recruiter in the country. Because like you have arguably the closest thing the SEC has seen to Cam Newton since 2010
Yeah.
in Lenore Sellers. And you give this guy who is a Lamborghini on the offense, you give him Lego tires and like a weed eater motor. And it's like, what are you doing? It's like all you had to do was go pay some linemen and like one wide receiver, and you have a chance to play in the first SEC championship
Yep.
South Carolina has in almost 20 years. And you can't do it.
Yeah.
So the offensive line at South Carolina, even as a Georgia fan, pisses me off. Because I like to watch good football.
Yeah.
It's like, how long can Lenore Sellers get his ass beat before it's Shane Beamer's fault?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And yeah, it's to have a quarterback as talented as Lenore Sellers is and to have looked as inept offensively as they have the first 2 weeks of the season is just crazy.
And then you got 5'8" Diego Pavia just destroying everyone.
Yes. Yeah, that had to be rock ball. Actually, one of my good friends who went to Georgia, his parents went to Virginia Tech, so he grew up a Virginia Tech fan. And I was texting with him earlier this week, and we were texting about the UT Georgia game. But I was like, that had to be rock bottom on Saturday night for your family and the Hokies to have that sort of second half at home against Vanderbilt.
Yeah, that. Oh, I can't imagine. But at the same time, I watched 2016 Georgia, so I can't imagine. All right, then we got Georgia at Tennessee. Georgia 3.5 point favorite, over under 50.5.
Yeah, I like our pick story will run on Friday, but I have all my part done as of Thursday night. So I think I had Georgia 27, Tennessee 14. So Georgia to win, Georgia to cover, and the under. Yeah, I'm just in a little bit of see it to believe it, especially with Tennessee's offense against Georgia. And I think just kind of a trickle down from that, it's see it to believe it for Tennessee to pull off the upset, because Georgia just doesn't do many things to beat themselves. They certainly haven't in this series, and it doesn't seem like they do it much at all in general. So, a game like Alabama last year where Tennessee wins in Knoxville and just doesn't really play that well, but was able to capitalize on Alabama making some mistakes. It could happen. You obviously never rule something like that out, but again, I'm gonna have to see it to believe it.
We appreciate you coming on and talking to us. It shockingly has been a wild ride trying to find somebody from Tennessee because none of our social media pages are verified, so we have little access to message pages, and we've talked to the same Tennessee person for like 3 years in a row, and his email and phone were both down this way. It's been a wild ride. Normally Tennessee fans love to talk, so it was just interesting.
Yeah, no, you're right about the verified thing. That's what forced me to do the, whatever, the Twitter Plus, or when Elon made it where you have to have that to message people that don't follow you. That's what pushed me to do it. It makes things a lot harder when you don't have that.
For sure. But we appreciate you coming on and talking to us. Um, and then last thing I'm going to say before we get out of here, if y'all are in the Savannah area, come hang out at Tybee with us for this game. All away games, all neutral site games. I go to the home games. I'm not giving up my tickets to sit at a bar with y'all. I love you, but I'm not doing it. But come hang out with us. We're giving away a golf bag this week, some high-end beach toys, a bunch of other stuff, new T-shirts. Y'all know what it is. We've been talking about it for like 6 weeks. We appreciate you coming on and talking to us.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it, and we'll have to do it again sometime.
For sure.